Hi, brother. It's me, Charles Oliveira. Happy birthday to you. Let's go.
Hi, brother. It's me, Charles Oliveira. Happy birthday to you. Let's go. Hi, brother.
Stop it, Charles. Please, for the love of God. Oh, people, ladies and guys, we gotta switch up. There it is. It's the UFC countdown, ladies and gentlemen. The Dynamite Gizmo Podcast, episode 290. Can you believe it? 290 episodes, motherfuckers. I can't fucking believe it. Who would have thought we'd ever been here? It's the UFC Countdown edition of the Dynamite Gizmo Podcast. And why is it that? Because we have UFC 326 coming up this goddamn weekend. Here's today's card. It's tradition around here to show you the card, but it's not tradition to show you what's on the card yet. But you'll find out anyway because we'll talk about it. Oh, this song slaps, motherfucker. But if I'm not mistaken, it gives me a copyright claim every single time. Even though I paid for the shit. I don't think I have the proper credentials in the description. So let's just go ahead and fade this out. Because we need to get started in today's episode, mother fox. Let's just shut it off completely. Ready? There it is. UFC 326 is this weekend. Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira. Number 2. Hi, brother. It's me, Charles Oliveira. Happy birthday to you. Let's go. It's one of the greatest lines in the history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I'm trying to be quiet because I have neighbors upstairs and they're going to think I'm a crazy person if I scream too loud. But that's okay. They scream too loud as well sometimes. Sometimes you got to say what's on top of your mind. We got lots of stuff to talk about today. There's been all kinds of news coming in and out of the UFC sphere. Ilia Topuria is saying that he's got some news. We got Arman and Giorgio drama. And Islam might not be fighting Ian Garry. But before we get into any of that, we need to talk about UFC 326. Because it is the UFC Countdown Edition. Which means we're going to talk all things and everything UFC 326 related. But before we get into any of that, take a look at the screen now. If you're not already, but you should be. This here is a fight prediction sheet. I create these sheets for every main numbered event and fight nights. You have no fucking idea, dude. You have no fucking idea. So if you want this sheet, it is available in the description. You might be saying to yourself, what the fuck even is this? What am I looking at here? Does this simply just show us what fights are happening? Nah. That's not all it does. Why don't we take a zoom in here? Actually, let's zoom out first. As you can already tell, it has every single fight from 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 13. Okay? Now if we zoom in here, we'll go into Chihuihuis here. Okay? Each block has a nice little chunk of everything you need to know. Before the night even begins, you're going to go through each one of these blocks and you're going to check off the fighter you wish to win under the pick column. Okay? As the fights play out throughout the night, you check off the winner checkbox to see how well you did. All right? Now, within each box, you can see it has the ranking of the fighter. It's got their country of origin flag, a picture of the fighters, their nicknames, their Vegas betting odds, their fight record, their name, the weight class, the order in which the fight happens, bada boom, bada bing, everything you would need for the basics in terms of picking fights. Okay? There's also a note section underneath in this white box. On the right-hand side, across each row, there is some little facts about the fights and fighters. It also tells you the area in which the event will be held, plus the arena. And we got the fight poster here. Now, at the end of the night, once every fight is over and once you've checked off every box, you are going to tally up your score and put it in the bottom right-hand corner here. Out of 13. How well did you do? I don't know. You tell me. And then we also have the card rating, an overall rating out of 5 stars. What did you personally think of this card? Was it a piece of shit, or was it really good, or somewhere in the middle? Then there's also the expectation scale. Where did this meet on your expectations? Did it flop, meet, exceed, or anywhere in between? Check those off. I make these available for free. It's a sheet you can print off and make as many copies as you desire for your friends and family. This makes UFC Fight Night just a little bit more exciting. And even if your friends and family do not understand how the UFC works, they can still utilize this sheet to their advantage. And it just makes them feel more involved, and it just makes them feel like they're having a little bit more fun. Because you know not everybody gives a shit about the UFC. And at the very end of this episode, I will show you my picks for this weekend. But we're not going to do that right yet because we have to talk about Max Holloway. And at the end of this episode, we will go over some news and events. We still have yet to hear about the White House card. Dana keeps saying I'm going to announce it this week, but he doesn't. And there's nothing new about that. We probably won't even know until the card actually happens. Let's talk about Max Holloway in our first segment of the day. Who the fuck even is Max? Of course I know. I know who Max is, and anyone who actually pays attention to the UFC should know who Max is. And if you don't, you're more than a casual. You're someone who shouldn't even be involved in the UFC. Do you realize that Max has had 31 fights in the UFC and has only lost 8 times? Now that might sound like a lot at first until you look at who the losses came against. Ilia Topuria, Alexander Volkanovski 3 times, Dustin Poirier twice, Conor McGregor once, and a guy by the name of Dennis Bermudez in a split decision loss very early in his career. UFC career, I should say. That's the list. Other than that, he has won 23 times. He went on a 13-fight win streak, captured the featherweight title, defended it 4 times, gave us one of, if not the greatest knockouts in UFC history, on one of the greatest cards the UFC has ever produced. And right now, he's on a 1-title defense streak with the BMF title after defeating Dustin Poirier in his retirement fight. Finally getting that win after not being able to get past him the first 2 times. He is also the first and only fighter in UFC history to hold an interim, an undisputed, and a BMF title. Whoopsie daisies. Oh, my stomach is growling. I'm getting hungry, my fuckers. I want everyone to take a look at this image here. All right, this is a nice, crispy, clean image. Whoopsies. Let's have a look, shall we? Look at this. A nice Hawaiian boy with the undisputed, the interim, and the BMF. Wow. Lovely, lovely AI picture. Everybody loves AI, right? We can't get enough of it. You can say the BMF belt is a bunch of bullshit, and sure, maybe it is. But if there was ever someone who deserved that title, it would be Max Holloway. The BMF title is about making the fun fights. The fights we all want to see. Unfortunately, the UFC isn't what it used to be. We used to just get the fights we wanted, but things have changed. Politics, rankings, negotiations. I mean, it was inevitable that the UFC was going to head down that road, but the BMF belt still gives us something pure. It gives us the fights that not only feel big, but are big. And here's something even crazier. If Max goes the full 5 rounds this weekend, he will surpass Rafael dos Anjos and claim the record for the longest octagon time in UFC history. He already holds the all-time record for the most significant strikes landed at 3,655, and the record for total strikes landed at 3,907. This man has built one of the most incredible careers in MMA history. Even after losing his UFC debut to Dustin Poirier in 2012, he never folded. He pushed forward, he evolved, he became one of the greatest. And here's another wild stat. Out of his 23 wins, only 2 have came by submission. That's why he calls himself, and why most people agree, that Max Holloway is the best boxer in the UFC, baby. And that stat pairs perfectly with his opponent, Charles Oliveira, who has won the majority of his victories, 22 of them, by submission. And we'll talk more about Charles soon, but let's just stay with Max for now. It's crazy because in a lot of people's minds, Max still feels like the young, rising prospect. But this sport moves fast, and just like that, he's already a veteran at 34 years old. Look back at the first time Holloway fought Oliveira. Look at this poster that I'm about to show you. Look at how young this motherfucker was. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Come on, don't be shy. Don't be shy. I mean, look at both these guys. Look at them. Look how young and weird they look. Especially Charles. Who is this guy? Strange looking fella. Strange looking fella. Even though Max has spent the majority of his career at featherweight and has only landed he has only won 2 out of 3 fights at lightweight. He's still ranked number 4 in the lightweight division. And if he goes out there and defeats Charles Oliveira, he's right back in talks for the actual lightweight title. And yeah, technically this is the BMF title, but push that aside. This fight is massive. 2 of the biggest stars in the sport, still in their prime, both proven, both battle-tested, both have beaten elite competition in their divisions, and now they collide at the peak of their careers. But there's one specific angle we need to focus on when it comes to Max. Ever since his win over Justin Gaethje, he claimed something that he may not be able to walk away from for the rest of his career. So let's see what it is that I'm talking about. And I'm sure you already know. But in case you don't, and by the way, I'm more than likely going to get dinged for this. This is going, well, we might even have to cut this out. How much of this can I show? Probably none of it. Okay, let's see if I can do this right. Okay. Let's see here. So Max is about to do... Watch. Look, point. Okay, so he does the point down. I hope if I just show it in split seconds here, it won't get chucked up. Anyway, he does the point down, and then they go to the center, and they just start swinging, and then cock, and that's enough of that. I can't believe I forgot that I was going to get copyright claim for this anyway. Let me just explain what happened, okay? Back in 2024, at UFC 300, which is what we just watched, Max pointed to the ground in the final 10 seconds of the 5th round and knocked Justin Gaethje out cold with 1 second left on the clock. 1 second. That moment instantly became one of the most iconic moments in UFC history. It will never be forgotten. And now it's his signature move. It's something he almost has no choice but to chase every single fight from here on out. He fought Ilya in 2024, right after that fight, and didn't make it to the final moments to do it, but Ilya actually performed the point to the center of the octagon at him at the very start of round 1. Then in July of 2025 against Poirier, sure enough, Max did the point again in the final round. So here we are again. And Oliveira knows it's coming. He's expecting it. He's preparing for it. Even though Oliveira is one of the most dangerous submission artists the sport has ever seen, he has to be ready to fight Max on the feet and possibly stand in the center in the final 10 seconds. So what does that mean for Max moving forward? He's only 34 years old. He's not quite near retirement yet. He's still got a good run left in him. But this point to the center moment could follow him for the rest of his career. Every opponent will expect it, train for it, maybe even try to weaponize it against him. Especially Oliveira. But from Oliveira's perspective, this is for the BMF belt. The baddest motherfucker. You don't just win that by playing it safe. You prove it. There have only been a handful of fighters in UFC history known for a signature finishing move, and Max has created one within the past couple of years. And it might be one of the greatest ever. So what happens now? Does Oliveira take the risk and stand and bang? Or does he forget the hype and drag Max into his own world? I don't know. Because now Max is asking a different question. What would a real BMF do? Let's take a listen to what Max had to say here a little while back. Pause. Play. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here before we get started. All right. Oh, it won't let me. Okay, that's good enough, I guess.
For sure, Bro, a lot of people keep talking about my ground game just because I don't show it off too much, but why? You know what I mean? Why is a magician gonna show stuff that he doesn't have to show? If everybody's wild with the first 2 tricks, why am I gonna go to the 4, 5, 6? So at the end of the day, it is what it is. They can think anyway, But I've been saying, if you guys follow me on YouTube, I said it before. My coach is gonna kill me, but a real BMF thing to do is to go submit a submission artist. So at the end of the day, don't be surprised. A lot of these guys, I saw him doing the point down, and then when I talked about submitting him, everybody's like, "What in the world are we doing, brother?" It is what it is. It's an MMA fight, And most of the time, Charles don't submit guys because he gets him to the ground. He submits guys because he hurt him on the feet with his stand up. So, don't be so surprised I hurt him, and maybe we jump something, maybe not. Maybe we'll go out there for finishes, for a knockout, but. If it happened, if it's there, never say never.
Never say never. Justin Bieber. Now we're hearing Max say he wants to submit Charles Oliveira, a striker submitting one of the greatest submission artists of all time. And honestly, that would be a pretty bad motherfucker move. We could be looking at a fight where Max is hunting submissions and Charles is hunting knockouts. How absolutely insane would that be? So let me ask you this. If you're Charles Oliveira and those final 10 seconds hit and Max points to the center, are you stepping in? Or are you shooting for a takedown? And if you're Max, do you have to point now? Is that just who you are from this point forward? Does the BMF belt demand it? I want to know what you think. Is Max locked into that moment for the rest of his career, or is this the fight where someone finally flips the script on him? Let me know in the comments below, baby. Hanukkah, Hanukkah, I love Hanukkah. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to fucking subscribe. Did you forget? For crying out loud. I bet you did, you little bastard. You're a little bastard, you know that? Fucking bastard. Hold on, which way do I gotta push over here? So I'm center. Charles Oliveira. Hi, brother. It's me, Charles Oliveira. Happy birthday to you. Let's go. I'm hearing some strange noises. I live next to a massive military base. So we're hearing some crazy explosions. Let's get into the second segment of the day, shall we? We're going to talk about Charles Oliveira. Hi, brother. It's me. Charles. Charles Oliveira. Absolute legend. Absolute legend. And I'm just stating the facts here. I've shown many of my non-UFC fan friends pictures of Charles before, and the first thing they say is, "Who is this ugly motherfucker? Who is this ugly motherfucker?" That's what they say. They don't understand the legendary status that they're witnessing. But you see, none of that matters when you know who Bronx really is. Because when you look at the numbers, when you look at the career, when you look at the journey, you realize you're watching one of the most accomplished fighters the UFC has ever seen. Charles Oliveira holds 3 of the greatest records in UFC history. Most finishes in UFC history with 21, most submission wins in UFC history with 17, and the most fight night bonuses in UFC history with 21. Looking at those numbers today, Charles seems undeniable. But there was a time when nobody saw him that way. And that's what makes his story so fascinating. Because today, Charles Oliveira is respected, celebrated, and cherished. But in the beginning, it was rough. Charles joined the UFC back in 2010, and for the first 7 years of his career, things were extremely inconsistent. He would win a fight, then he would lose a fight, go on a small streak, then he would lose again, back and forth, flip-flop, nothing stuck, nothing lasted, and to be honest, a lot of people labeled him as a quitter. Someone who couldn't keep it together inside the octagon. Paul Felder, believe it or not, was the last man to defeat Charles before everything changed. Because after that loss, Charles had a baby girl. And everything changed. He went on an 11-fight win streak. And the world slowly started realizing what Bronx was capable of. And after defeating Tony Ferguson in 2020, which put him at 8 wins in a row, people were fully on board the Bronx train. And at the same time, Michael Chandler had just debuted into the UFC and scored a huge knockout over Dan Hooker. That win immediately pushed Chandler into the top 5. And more importantly, it gave him a shot at the vacant lightweight championship. And that title fight was against Charles Oliveira. And what did Charles do? He went out there and finished Michael Chandler in round 2 with a left hook followed by ground and pound punches. And just like that, Charles Oliveira became the undisputed lightweight champion. Something almost nobody would have predicted early in his career. He then defended his title later that same year against Dustin Poirier. And once again, Charles delivered, submitting Dustin Poirier in round 3 with a rear naked choke. And at that point, it felt like the story had come full circle. The once inconsistent fighter, the guy people called a quitter, had now become the champion of the world. But this sport has a way of testing people. Because the following year, Charles was scheduled to defend his title against Justin Gaethje. Everything was going according to plan until the official weigh-ins. Charles came in at 0.5 pounds overweight, which meant he was above the contracted limit to defend the title. Right then and there on the scale, Charles Oliveira was stripped of the championship. And then the rules of the fight changed instantly. Now, only Justin Gaethje was eligible to win the title. If Charles won that fight, the belt would remain vacant. And what happened? Well, Charles went out there and submitted Gaethje in round 1 with a rear naked choke. So the belt remained vacant. But everyone watching knew exactly who the best lightweight in the world was at that time. It was Charles Oliveira. It was a tough moment for Charles, and it was a tough moment for his fans. But because he won that fight, he was given the next opportunity to fight for the title once again. And unfortunately for him, that fight was against none other than Islam Makhachev, who has since gone on to become the #1 pound-per-pound fighter in the world. And, of course, that night, it didn't go Charles' way. And just like that, his road back to the title became even more complicated. He was scheduled to rematch Islam a year later, but a cut in training forced him out of the fight, which led to Alexander Volkanovski stepping in on 10 days' notice. Eventually, Charles got another opportunity when Islam vacated the lightweight belt and moved up to welterweight. Now Charles was matched up with Ilia Topuria, who had also vacated his featherweight title and moved up to lightweight. And this happened just last year. And unfortunately for Charles, Ilia slept him in round 1, as he does, with a right-left hook combination followed up by hammer fists. So now the question becomes, will Charles Oliveira ever get another shot at the lightweight title? Honestly, I have no fucking idea. But what I do know is that this weekend he has an opportunity to win the BMF title. And the opponent standing across from him is Max Holloway. Two absolute legends of the sport. Two fighters who have built their careers in completely different ways, yet somehow ended up here at the same time. It's one of those matchups where, honestly, you don't want either guy to lose. Charles currently sits at 36-11 in his career, with 22 of those wins coming by submission. So the big question becomes, is he going to stand with Max the entire time, or is he eventually going to shoot? Because history and statistics suggest he probably will shoot for a takedown, or at least hit Max hard enough to knock him to the ground and then swarm him. What we're really looking at here is an elite striker versus an elite grappler. And some might even argue the best striker or the best boxer in the UFC versus the best and most dangerous submission artist in the UFC. I mean, just look at the records. Max Holloway holds the record for most total strikes and most significant strikes. Charles Oliveira holds the record for most finishes and most submissions in the UFC history. These are two record-holding fighters, two legends, two completely different skill sets that they specialize in, and somehow they're meeting again right now at this stage of their careers. I honestly don't think people realize how significant this fight really is. But if this fight does reach the final 10 seconds of the final round, well, Max has already given us a pretty clear idea of what the expectations are when that moment arrives. All right? I'm sure you're already familiar with the point to the center of the octagon, but are you familiar with exactly the way in which Max needs it to be done? Let's take a listen.
What is the correct etiquette on the point down at the center of the octagon? Because everyone but you is doing this wrong.
Yeah, I know. People is giving me shit about the point down. Everybody, I swear, every fight there's like a bunch of people doing it. And here are the official rules, guys. I'm talking to you fighters. Whatever round you guys is at, if you guys fighting a 2-rounder, a 3-rounder, a 5-rounder, a 4-rounder, whatever it is, if you're winning the fight, you're the person who can call the 10 seconds. And then when you call the 10 seconds, you cannot step back or shoot or clinch. This is the opportunity to go crazy, you know. Don't shoot. Don't try to take advantage of a situation, you know. The whole thing is the last 10 seconds you give this guy a Hail Mary pass and see if he can catch it. That's what it is, guys. Don't shoot, don't clinch, swing it out.
Makes sense. Max Holloway, makes sense. But I truly have no idea which way this fight is going to end. I have no idea. It's one of those, sometimes you'll have an idea, sometimes you don't, sometimes you have no fucking idea, and this is one of those matchups where it's like, I don't know. Round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, don't know, could end at any time. So let me ask you guys something. If you're Charles Oliveira in this fight, do you try to prove something and stand with Max? Or do you do what made you a legend and take him to the ground? Because if Charles gets Max on the mat, this fight could end very quickly. But if he stands and trades with the best boxer in the world, that might be a dangerous game. Let me know in the comments below, okay? Because remember, keep in mind, all right, this is for the BMF title, the baddest motherfucker, okay? This is supposed to be a fight where they put it all on the line and they show you how bad they fucking are. And by bad, I mean good. So we'll see! We'll see! Now, before we get into my fight predictions and fights to look out for, we are going to go over some news that has been happening in the wonderful world of the UFC. So if you're not aware, RAF happened last week, and the highlight of the night was Arman Tsarukyan versus Giorgio Polis. Let's take a looky-loo. This was the highlight here. Let's watch. Oh, shut that music off, please, would you? So Georgie does a little face grab there. Arman doesn't like it. This is all in slow motion, so you can really see. Oh, that's all we got. Oh, great. I thought I had more. Anyway, Arman ends up throwing some punches. You can look it up, okay? And if you haven't seen it already, where the hell have you been? Now, initially after that fight, so Arman did actually win the match, okay? The judges ruled that Arman won. If you look at his Tapology page, he has the win. Giorgio disagrees, okay? And if you want to see why he disagrees, you can check out the episode of the Ariel Helwani show that he did on Tuesday of this week. Or as Ariel likes to say, Tuesday. Okay? And then, also, on Tuesday, it was announced that they would actually rematch in the organization called Hype in a submission-only match. Okay? It's the same sort of thing that he did with Shara Magomedov. If it doesn't end by submission, then it's a draw. Okay? But now it turns out that shit has been canceled. Also, according to Ariel Helwani, he says Giorgio Polis is withdrawing from next week's submission match versus Arman Tsarukyan per RAF co-founder Chad Bronstein. His preference is the rematch happens under the RAF banner. And I actually agree with this. Okay? The hype is all around the RAF match. The judges ruled that Arman won. Giorgio says he didn't actually take him down because it was outside the boundary, and he had him in what was known as a wizard hold. So he didn't actually bring him to the ground. I don't know. I don't know wrestling. I'm not a wrestling boy. But what I can tell you is there is so much hype around this that they have no choice but to do it. And no choice but to do it on RAF. It doesn't make sense to do it on this hype organization. But of course hype's going to jump on the opportunity if they can. Now, Arman was scheduled to fight on this hype card already, but he had no opponent. They were trying to find him an opponent, so they threw Giorgio on there. So I'm wondering if Arman Tsarukyan is still going to fight on that hype card, but it's going to be against someone else. And let me tell you this. Arman has done 7 different grappling/wrestling matches in less than a year. The guy is non-stop out there on top of his social media rise. It's insane, the popularity that's growing from this man. Even if you don't give a fuck about the UFC and you don't know any fighters, people are starting to recognize Arman Tsarukyan because of his social media presence. The guy is guaranteed a title match at some point this year. He has to be. He has to be. He's on top of the world, baby. Okay? And then another news, kind of White House. Well, I was going to say White House news, but just big fight news in general. If we look here, Ali Abdelaziz, who happens to be Islam Makhachev's manager, as well as many other fighters' managers, has put out a statement, and he says, "This is, I can tell you, the UFC working on a big fight. Islam Makhachev and Ian name is not involved. His English is not great. Much bigger. One of the biggest fight in UFC right now they can make. Stay tuned." So it looks like we all thought, and I thought, even based off last episode, that, it was going to be Ian Garry, the number 1 contender, the guy who deserves the spot, the guy who flew to Georgia to train his wrestling skills to fight Islam Makhachev, okay? And then Ian put out this tweet and said, "I'm so glad my agent doesn't talk too much," referring to Ali Abdelaziz. I think that's how you say it. We're also hearing rumors that it's potentially going to be Michael Morales. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think Michael Morales deserves a shot. I even think Carlos Prates is right around the corner. If need be, he could do it. But I would say the 2 contenders who deserve it most are Michael Morales, but more appropriately, it should be Ian Garry. Okay? He deserves that shot. He defeated the number 1 contender, amongst many others, putting Shavkat out for multiple years, even though he lost to him. Okay? And this is a little vid Ian Garry put out here just yesterday, and we'll take a looky-loo together.
What's going on with the Islam fight?
He needs more time. And his agent's talking out his arse.
Why is that?
Because Ali's full of shit. Little rat.
Why does Islam need more time?
I don't know. No, I believe Islam's ready to fight. I believe Islam's the very best this world has to offer as a fighter. But don't call yourself the pound-for-pound greatest on the planet and try to push for more time. That's all. Anyone, anywhere, anytime. That's the baddest man on the planet. And the guy who lives by that mantra is me.
What's going on with...
So I don't know where he's getting this more time thing. Did Islam come out and say he needs more time? I don't think so. There are factors at play. It is still Ramadan, which goes till March something, so that's about over. So if he does need more time, it might be because he can't, well, he can train, but he has to fast during the training period, and all the Ramadan folk, the Islamic folk, the whatever you call it, they typically don't fight or train during Ramadan. So is that what's happening here? I don't know. But even still, let's say he does need more time. Why would that prevent him from fighting Garry? Because it still looks like Islam's going to fight, whether it's later or sooner. But it seems to be that they're pushing for Michael Morales. Now, West Till Death put out a crazy little blurb here. Why don't we take a read of this? Now this, do not take this as any sort of official statement. This is just some sort of speculation on West Till Death's doorstep. And they say, Islam Makhachev has officially declined the fight against Garry. His manager claims that the UFC is currently working on the most significant fight for him. On February 10th, 2026, Georges St-Pierre posted, I'd like to leave, but I'd love to come back. This was the same day Dana White announced matchmaking for the event. After Khabib Nurmagomedov defeated Justin Gaethje, he was going to call out Georges St-Pierre, but surprisingly retired. Georges St-Pierre was contacted before the fight and agreed to return for the match. Fast forward to the most historic event in UFC history, we could see Georges St-Pierre return to an even more decorated fighter in Islam Makhachev. And they got a nice little graphic here. Now, is that going to happen? I highly fucking doubt it. But I will say, George, it does tickle my fancy, the fact that George did put out that tweet a while ago. I remember seeing that. He also put out another one right after that, which kind of hinted at his comeback as well. And if he were to ever come back, he wouldn't just come back for some schlum. It would have to be for the title. And it would have to be at welterweight. And who just so happens to be the welterweight champion of the world? It's Islam Makhachev, who is basically Khabib's brother, training partner, the man who was supposed to fight Georges St-Pierre to begin with. So, all I'm saying is, if he were to come back, it would be against Islam Makhachev. Now, what else do I have to say? Oh yes, it also looks like Conor McGregor isn't going to be on the White House, which I kind of figured to begin with. But he very well might be on International Fight Week, which is like July 11th or something. According to Ariel Helwani, who, whether you love him or hate him, however you feel about him, his sources are usually correct. And what he's saying is, he's not saying it's guaranteed that he's going to be on the International Fight Week card, but what he is saying is, it's looking like it would more than likely be the International Fight Week card rather than the White House card, which tells us, okay, what are we going to put on the White House? It's more than likely going to be, I shouldn't say more than likely. It would make sense to bring John Jones back and fight Alex Pereira for the heavyweight title, the vacant heavyweight title. They're going to strip Tom Aspinall, I guarantee it. Or they'll do an interim, which I actually would prefer. Then that doesn't strip Tom Aspinall. And you're going to have and that's a massive fight, and there's still technically a title on the line. All right, John Jones has came out and said that he is actually back in negotiations with the UFC. Ariel Helwani actually confirmed it right before John Jones put out that statement. We already know that Alex Pereira vacated the title. And Yuri already has his fight booked with Ulberg for said title in April. So it only makes sense to have Alex on the White House card, and it only makes sense to have him against John Jones, being that he's American and considered the greatest of all time. All right? And then Ilia Topuria put out some news as well on his X page that says, big news coming soon. So I think the biggest cards that the biggest fights that they could do on the card, aside from Conor McGregor, would be Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje, John Jones, and Alex Pereira. 2 massive title fights. And they might even throw Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes on there too. Who knows? That is, if Kayla can get back in time. All right? Also, one other thing I want to mention. Caio Borralho is fighting this weekend, okay, in the co-main event against RDR. Now, there is a chance, and let's hope it happens, that if Caio Borralho wins, that means all 4 fighting nerds will have bounced back from their losses from last year, and they will be back on win streaks, and we can get back on the Fighting Nerds train, even though I never left it. But we need that Fighting Nerd momentum back. They were so hype. 2024 and leading into 2025, they were huge. You know, I like that. I made a whole video essay about that anyway. Okay, we're gonna get into the last bit of this episode, which is my fight predictions / fights to look out for. It's not a crazy stacked card, but it's pretty decent. So let me just pull up Tapology here. Actually, hang on here. Let me just... UFC 326. UFC 326. Whoops. Badadi yadadai. Yadadui dadai. How do I do this? Separate views. There we go. There we go. Okay. So here's the fight prediction sheet. Oh yeah, okay. If you want this sheet, it's available. Link in the description. We're going to start with the early prelims. The first fight of the night, we've got fucking Rodolfo Bellato back. Okay? Now, if you're not familiar with Rodolfo Bellato, he's had one of the most interesting runs in the UFC. Let's take a look at his Tapology page, shall we? Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum. So he joined the UFC in 2023 after winning his Contender Series fight. Also in 2023. Had a pretty good record. His only losses were to Vitor Petrino, which is fair enough. And one of those losses was his first Contender Series fight. Okay? But he got another shot at it. And he won. Got his contract. And then he won his first fight, his debut fight in the UFC. Now we scroll ahead to his second fight in the UFC. It was against Jimmy Crute. And unfortunately, it ended in a draw. So then he had another fight scheduled in May of 2025, and it was against Paul Craig. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but about 40 minutes before they were about to walk to the octagon, the fight was canceled, and it was a mystery. And all that was said was, oh, it's some sort of health condition. All right, but it was later revealed that Rodolfo Bellato had herpes, and they had to cancel that fight. Okay, interesting. I've never seen that before. But then it gets rescheduled for June 14th of 2025. Again, against Paul Craig. And the fight is stopped in the last second of round number 1 because Paul Craig did an illegal up kick. Fair enough. Okay. Paul Craig's fault. But the kicker is Rodolfo Bellato looked as though he faked a knockout. It looked as though he faked a knockout. And I talked about this back when it happened, but you can look up the video. It literally looks like he faked a knockout. So then now he's got a no contest. And then he fought in September of 2025 against Navajo Sterling. And you know we love Navajo around here. And he lost. So in his entire UFC career, which has only been 4 fights long so far, he's had a win, draw, no contest, and a loss. Okay, he's literally had everything you could possibly get back to fucking back. So this guy is a fucking wild card. What the hell could possibly happen? I don't know. Okay, the man he's going up against, this is the first fight of the night, by the way, is Luke Fernandez. All right, now Luke Fernandez has not been in the UFC yet. But if we look at his career so far, he is completely undefeated. He's had amateur titles. He's had the CFFC title and defended it twice, and then even had the grappling title in the CFFC. Okay? He won his Contender Series fight back in October, and this is his debut. He has a very high chance of winning, or he has a chance, I should say, not a high chance. But even though he is the favorite, and even though I don't really feel great about Rodolfo Bellato, there's something in my heart that's telling me this man could possibly take the dub. I think, if anything, this is going to motivate him to get his act together and figure out what he needs to do. And he's going to go out there and he's going to win. And if he doesn't, he's getting cut from the UFC. So that's why I'm picking Rodolfo Bellato. Next up, we have Lee versus Bolanos. This is the second fight of the night. Now, this was originally supposed to be a man by the nickname of Zombie Jr., who trains with the Korean Zombie, but he dropped out for some reason, and they threw this other Korean fella in here. So let's take a look at their credentials, shall we? We'll try to blast through this quick. You might think I'm going slow because I had to talk about Bellato so much, but I just had to mention that. So Young Lee, let's see here. He's 30 years old. He's been in the UFC since 2023. Won his first 2 fights, and now he's on a 2-fight losing streak. His last fight was against Daniel Santos. So, okay. And then Gaston Bolanos. He was in Bellator for a while. Joined the UFC in 2023. Excuse me. He had a win, a loss, a win, and a loss. And this guy's name looks like it says coronavirus, but it says Corta Vios. So Kwai Lee, Marcus McGee, those were his losses. Okay, so really this could go either way. He's a knockout boy. Okay, 75% of his wins are by knockout. Lee, he's kind of straight across the board. He's got some knockouts. He's got some submissions. He's got some decisions. Myself, personally, I went with Lee. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Dream Killer took it. Next up, we got some more debut fighters. Tobias versus Nurgazhi, a Kazakhstani boy. So let's pull up their credentials here. Tobias versus Nurgazhi. So Tobias, let's see here. 14-1-0. His nickname is Bipolar, and he's only 22 years old. He looks much older. not really specialize in anything. Pretty decent record. He's only had one loss, and it was in LFA. Okay, that says something. So yeah, won his Contender Series fight. He's coming into the UFC. We really can't say anything based off of that stuff. Then the other guy, stop it, would you? The other guy, 10-2-0, 28 years old, likes to knock out. He won his Contender Series, and he lost his first 2 fights in the UFC. So, if you're just basing it off those statistics alone, you'd want to go for Tobias, but again, you never know. But because of those stats and because I'm not familiar with these guys, I did go for Mr. Bipolar. Okay, next up, the 4th fight of the night. We've got Sumudaerji versus Aguilar. China versus Mexico. All right. Let's see what stats we got for these big boys. Yeah, this is one of those Chinese fellows who only has one name. Okay. Sumudaerji is 18-7-0. The Tibetan Eagle. We've seen this fellow before. He's been around since 2018. Okay. Kind of inconsistent. Goes on a bit of a win streak. Goes on a loss streak. Now he's on a win streak. A 2-fight win streak. Raposo and Borralho. That's pretty good. And then Aguilar. We've seen this guy before. 12-3-0 or 1? 12-3-0. Okay. His debut was against Tatsuro Taira. Lucky for him. He lost. But that's expected. 3-fight win streak. And then lost to Estevam. And then had a win back in September. So, again, we could go either way with this. Which way did I go? I can't remember. I went with Aguilar. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to go to the prelims, okay? All right, Mr. Durden versus Mr. Tamandemberel. He calls himself the Art of Knockout, but if you actually look at his credentials, that's not really what he does. That's not his specialty. So I don't know where that nickname came from. But first, let's take a look at Mr. Cody Durden, custom-made Cody Durden. 17-9-1. He's 34. Again, even across the board. He's kind of on a crazy losing streak here, even though he did have that one win in here. Ulanbekov, Bruno Silva, Joshua Van. I mean, those are some killers, so that kind of makes sense. But then, he's not doing great, I got to admit. The odds are not in his favor on this. And then this feller, who has a very hard name to pronounce. I'm excited for Joe Rogan to say this name. But if you look, his nickname is the Art of Knockout. But if you look at his skills here, 67% of his wins are by submission. He's only had 2 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, and 1 by decision. Okay, and he's 1-1 in the UFC. He doesn't have a big fight record, but he's young, dumb, and full of cum. And so because of that, I went with the Art of Knockout. And next up, we have Tercios versus Montez. This guy looks a lot like Topuria, doesn't he? Kind of funny. Let's take a look at what we got going on here. Players! Yeah, we've seen Tercios before. Or at least I have. Wins the majority of his fights by decision. His debut into the UFC was against Ayman Zahabi, so that sucks. He also had Raul Rosas Jr., so that sucks. And Sopaj, so they kind of fed him some killers here. He did have 1 win, but he's he's had 2 wins. Oh, he's had 2. Yeah, he's had 2 wins in the UFC. Sorry, 2 wins and 2 and 3 in the UFC. Now Montez, look at this boy. That's a ripped motherfucker. He just looks like a killer. This is his debut into the UFC. He did great on the Contender Series. And yeah, I think he's going to do it. I really do. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think The Promise is a great name to have. Okay, next up we got Johnson versus Brundage. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. This one, some may say it's a given the way this will go. Others may say you never know. And you should be the one who says you never know. But let's just look here. Dante Lockjaw Johnson. Okay, we saw this guy on the Contender Series. He's 7-0, 27 years old. Loves to knock people out. 6 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. Has never won by decision, although he's only had 7 fights. I guess he had... Oh, yeah, Cedric Dumas. Right. Dude, he beat Dumas on his debut. How crazy is that? Undefeated. And round 1, round 2. Okay? So there's so many up-and-coming guys that come off the Contender Series that just love to have round 1 knockouts. And I got to tell you, I love it. And Dante Johnson's one of them. Even though he submitted Cedric Dumas in round 2, but still. Cody Brundage. Okay, Cody Brundage is 31. He's kind of just all over the place. Losses, no contest, draw. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Lots. But the guys, he lost to Dumas, he lost to Vieira, he lost to Oleksiejczuk. That makes sense. Bo Nickel, okay. That was UFC 300, dude. I forgot. That was UFC 300 that he lost to Bo Nickel. So I don't know. It's hard to go for Brundage. He could take the win based off all that shit. I don't know. So because of that, we're going to have to go for Dante Johnson. All right. Next up, classic Cody Garbrandt versus Long. China versus America. Okay, it's freaking cold in here. Garbrandt. No love Garbrandt. All right. How old is Garbrandt? Garbrandt's 34, so he's still not that old yet. He seems like he would be older because he's been around for a bit, but he's only 34. Loves to knock people out. You've seen Garbrandt. I don't need to say much about him. Went on a nice run. Did get the title over Dominic Cruz, which is a crazy thing, but then immediately lost it to TJ Dillashaw. We know the history here. We don't need to get over it, okay? He doesn't fight much. He gets a lot of cancellations, but he's currently on a 2-fight losing streak to Figgy and Barcelos. It's like Figgy, okay, maybe I can understand, but still. And then Barcelos, it's like, I guess. But then we've got Long Zhao, 27-10-0. He's been around for a bit. He's been in one championship, but he's mostly been in WLF Wars, whatever that is. Has had a championship there. But has only been in the UFC since 2024. 2 wins, 1 loss. 2 losses, 1 win. I think this is a great matchup for Cody. I think this can give him a chance to get back into the win column, possibly. But I could also see him just fumbling the bag here. But I'm hopeful that Cody will get it done. So I'm going to go for the Garbrandt. All right, now we're on the main card of the evening. We got RoboCop versus the Hulk. Gregory Rodriguez versus Bruno Ferreira. Okay? It's really hard to vote against Gregory Rodriguez. But dude, Bruno Ferreira, he's had some decent wins, my friend. So Gregory Rodriguez, 34, massive middleweight. Looks like a giant. He's had some losses, he's had some wins. He lost. Oh no, that wasn't. Oh, that's what it was. He lost his Contender Series fight, but still found his way into the UFC after getting some wins in the LFA. And then had a loss to Arman. Oh, looks like they... Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. He already fought Bruno Ferreira. And he lost to him in round 1. Wow. How did I miss that? I totally forgot about that. It's hard to keep track. Okay, so this is a rematch. Wow. Wow. Okay. If you look at Bruno, yeah, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. Bruno might take this, dude. Bruno might take this. Wow, and that was Bruno's debut into the UFC. After his Contender Series won, he won against Gregory Rodriguez. Wowzers. Pull my trousers down. And his only losses are to Nursultan Ruzaboyev, and Abus Magomedov. Okay, if you're going to lose, those are guys to lose to. He won against Petrosian. But he hasn't really, I guess Martin Vettori, decent matchup, but you know what, dude? He could potentially win once again. But I think I still went for RoboCop, and I'm going to stick to it. Okay, next up we have Dober versus Johnson. Why am I forgetting? Drew Dober versus, what is it, Michael. Sorry. I get my names mixed up sometimes. Yeah, we've seen Drew Dober. He's been around the block. 37. Looks younger. Looks like a Giga Chad. He's been in the UFC since 2013. Look at all these fights he's had. Okay? You know, he was on a 3-fight losing streak, but then he won to Kyle. Won against Kyle Propolek. Michael Johnson, same thing. Been around the block. 39 years old. Decision win kind of guy. Lots of losses, lots of wins. More losses than wins, I think, right? Or no? Just one less loss than win. 16 wins, 15 losses. So, again, this is kind of up in the air. I'm going with Drew Dober because I feel like it, and you can't stop me. Here we go. Rob Font versus Raul Rosas Jr. This is Raul's chance to get in the top 15 of the bantamweight division. Finally. He was supposed to have this fight last year, but had to cancel because of an injury or something. His goal is to become the UFC bantamweight champion before he's 25, and he wants to retire at 25 years old as well. Now, his nickname isn't actually Chihuihuis. It's El Nino Problemo, the problem child. But his thing is Chihuihuis, so I threw that in here. So let's go ahead and pull up the stats. Okay? Now, although Chihuihuis looks funny, he can fight. Okay? Look into the history of Chihuihuis. His whole family fights. All his brothers and sisters, his mother, his dad, they all fight. Well, maybe not his mother, but his dad for sure. They have a lengthy history of fighting. I think if I'm not mistaken, his debut amateur fight was, 8 years old or something. He's crazy moth. But anyway, Rob Font is 38 years old. Been in the UFC since 2014. You know, nothing fancy, nothing crazy, nothing special about Rob Font. Coming off a loss. Whereas Raul Rosas Jr., he's had 6 fights in the UFC. He's only lost once, and it was to Christian Rodriguez. Okay? But he's a rising star in the UFC. People love Chihuihuis. Some say he's an arsehole if you meet him in public, but I don't know. I've never met the guy. But I'm a fan of the Chihuihuis, so I'm gonna pick him. Now we're at the co-main event of the evening, which is Caio Borralho versus Reinier de Ritter. This was another tough choice for me because I'm a fan of both of these guys. But let's take a look at their credentials, shall we? La-da-dee, la-da-die. Caio Borralho. So as we know, Caio Borralho is a fighting nerd, one of the 4 main fighting nerds, and the leader of the fighting nerds, I would say. He's 33, so still young, 17-2-0. He was undefeated in the UFC. He was on a 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, my monitor shut off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He was on a 10-fight winning streak if you include the grappling match. If not, then it's a 9-fight win streak. Beat some good names. Jared Cannonier, Paul Craig, Abus Magomedov, Oleksiejczuk. And after he beat Oleksiejczuk actually joined the Fighting Nerds and has since been fighting with them. Now, back in September in France, Caio fought Nasruddin Imavov in France and lost because Nasruddin is French, and the French like to cheat, and they do whatever they can to make sure that the French fighters win. It doesn't always work. Look at Brian Battle, which, by the way, let's get him back into the UFC, please, for the love of God. But we need the Fighting Nerd back, please, okay? And then we look at Reinier de Ridder. Now, also, I should mention, Caio Borralho won in a grappling match against Brendan Allen back in February, okay? Now, Reinier de Ridder was a elite fighter, okay? 2-division champ in 1 championship. He lost the title, but then he came into the UFC, went on a 4-fight win streak. Mearshart, Kevin Holland, Bo Nickel, Robert Whittaker. Like, big names right off the bat. Just win. And then he faced Brendan Allen in Canada back in October. And he had to back out in the 4th round. He couldn't go any further. He was exhausted. Now, according to him, he had some issues going into that fight, and he shouldn't have taken it. But regardless, he did, and he lost to Brendan Allen. And Caio has won against Brendan Allen, but it wasn't a grappling match, so I don't know. This literally could go any way. I wouldn't be surprised if RDR took it. But I have to go for Caio Borralho because he's a fighting nerd, and we need the fighting nerds back. Free spirit, baby, right across his neck. Now, the main event of the evening. We are not going to go over credentials here because we already did in the beginning of the episode. And so I am just going to tell you who it is that I picked. But before I do, remember, please subscribe. Like the video, subscribe, and make sure you hit that motherfucking bell so you get notified every week when there's videos that are released. And if you want this fight prediction sheet, the link is in the motherfucking bio or in the description. Get it, print it off, as many copies as you want, hand them out to you and your friends, make fight predictions throughout the night. It is fun, baby! Now let me tell you who it is that I picked. Did I go for Charles Oliveira? Sorry. Did I go for Max Holloway? Did I go for Charles Oliveira? I don't know. Let's see. I went Max Holloway. I did. Am I going to be upset if Charles wins? No. I'll be upset either way. I'll be happy either way. They're both beloved characters in the sport. How could you possibly choose? That's like choosing between 2 of your favorite children, my guy. But you have to pick. You have no choice. And so with that being said, that is it for this episode of the Dynamite Gizmo Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And once again, remember, like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell. The bell I don't care about. It's the subscribe button I care about the most. And leave a comment. Why not? Tell me whatever the fuck you want to tell me. Okay? And I'll be sure to see you in the next episode. Bye!